Thanks for having me here to the One Club. Thanks for being here, everyone. Lots of old friends that I've seen today. I brought 18 slides only, which means that I can stop on the third one or the 18th. So don't worry about if you have questions, if you want to discuss anything here, shoot. This is a theme that I have actually I spent the last 8 years deeply studying, and I know that everyone wants to talk about AI now. I spent the last 8 years talking to researchers and scientists talking about this and understanding brain scientists and computer science, try to understand what this is and what it's becoming because of my novel. I'm going to talk about that later. But then by the time that the novel was about to come out, AI became the biggest thing in the world. So I thought, all right, I'm kind of lucky and unlucky at the same time, because I feel like I'm just jumping the bandwagon, but I promise it's been longer than that. So let me start this story with a personal thing. So when I was 10 years old-ish, my uncle, who is a computer programmer, convinced my parents to give me a computer, and one of those little computers that you have to put a tape recorder to save things, and they're just, you can type in program in BASIC on it and everything. And my parents bought me a computer, and he taught me how to program. I got my first job as a programmer on his company 3 years later, and because of that, I ended up starting to explore the ideas of how computers and advertising could work together by accident, and then which led me to advertising. So when I started my first job at an agency, I had been working in technology for 10 years. The reason I'm telling you this is because I got in the advertising business with a big leg up, that I knew how computers thought, like one line of code at a time. And it's like, if you take those lines of code, those instructions, and line them up perfectly, put the conditions and everything, put all the instructions, I knew how computers would do. And it was right then the internet, the web was becoming a thing, just like AI is becoming now. And that experience of those years as a programmer, because my uncle gave me that gift, it basically set me up for success later, and changed my career, set up my career, changed my life just because of that. And so I have a 16-year-old son who who tells me he wants to be a filmmaker, he wants to be a director. So okay, so a creative, another creative in the family, good. I'm very excited about that. But one day I sat down and felt like, what is the equivalent of this, of what happened to me, that I can give him? What is the gift that I can give to my son that is equivalent to what my uncle gave me? And I thought, all right, there's a new kind of computing coming here, a new kind of computing that is not based on lines of code, on sequences of instructions. Again, I'm going to talk about that more later, but it's more about machines that think and get to their own conclusions, develop their own skills. If I can get my son to understand and play with it early, by the time that he becomes a professional, maybe he'll have that same benefit. And I think that that's a particularly important story to tell to you guys in the education field, because that's a real gift. There are rare opportunities in any industry when beginners have a very short distance in knowledge from the most experienced ones in their fields. When the internet was launched into the commercial world, that kind of closed that gap. That's when I got in. I got lucky, timing-wise, because my boss and me knew barely kind of the same thing. And maybe I knew a little bit more on the technical side, and he knew a lot more on the marketing side, but the gap had never been so small. I'm trying to give my son that same thing. And you can, if you pay attention to what's going on and take advantage of these moments, you can give your students the same incredible generational leg up and speed that in 3 years they are not gonna the ones getting into your classrooms are not gonna have. So that's the now next year, maybe the following one, they're gonna have a very special opportunity to see this. Now I go to the beach in Rio and my son is on the phone. If like he's on TikTok, no, he's on Midjourney creating posters for the movies he one day wants to make. And now he's studying at doing he's still in high school, but he's doing a screenwriting course at NYU. And he had to do a kind of this week had to write a pitch for a script that he was working on. And he did the pitch, and he put a poster with the pitch. And I thought, okay, that's something very special that makes a difference between him and other kids like his age and people who are more experienced than him. He can do things that no one else could before. The generations before, they couldn't practice. So this is the opportunity that the kids in your classrooms right now have, and you can be the facilitators of that, the instigators of that, if you point them on the right direction. The problem is that this moves too fast, so it cannot be held on to the technicalities of it. It's more important to hold on to think about the philosophical aspect and the thought process behind all those things. And this is what I'm bringing today. This is what I think are the most, the ideas behind the ideas on AI is not technical whatsoever, just so we can feel like, okay, this is what this can become. So whatever is the technology, the latest app, the latest thing in AI, you can still look at that in the context that will put your kids, your future superstars in the right track, right? So let me show you a couple things that I think mattered in terms of how I understand, especially in terms of how we see creativity, artificial intelligence in the creative field. 2017, Google did a project with one of their team they called AlphaGo. You may have heard about that story, that they put a group of engineers to create a machine to play Go, the game, the board game, against a Go champion. Right? They did it. After a couple tweaks on the system, they taught the best strategies to the computer. The machine won. What very few people know on the story on this thing, and I heard that from one of the guys working on the project, is that after they did that, they set it up, they invited the guy to come back a few months later because they're going to try again. And this time, they did not teach the computer the best strategies to play Go. They felt like, we're going to start over. So what they did, they took two computers, two AIs, different AIs, and taught them the rules of Go. And told the two AIs, play. And the AIs played and played and played and played and played and played. And thousands of games later, they felt like, okay, we're good. Invited the guy to play, the champion to play again. And they were playing. And the guy felt like, oh, they never taught anything? No, they just played and learned by themselves. They have no idea what the computer knows. And in the middle of the game, there's the guy telling me something. In the middle of the game, you could see that there was a smirk on the human playing. It's like, yeah, the computer just made a mistake. And then he continued to play, kind of towards the win. But all of a sudden, the guy started to sweat. It's like, oh, what's going on? And a few rounds later, the computer won. And the Go master looked at the engineers like, I don't believe this happened. So what happened here? We don't know. We have no clue what's happening here because we didn't teach the computer anything. It's like, the computer created, I know every game, every play that exists. The computer create, that's the word that he used. The computer created a play that did not exist before. It invented something that I have never seen. And that moment that I smiled, I thought he had made a mistake because if like, that's not how you play. And the computer won the game on that move. So I know that we as human beings, we tend to feel like, oh no, I was talking to Bob in the background. It's like, yeah, we tend to feel like, yeah, computers are not creative. We are the creatives, the machines. Let's stop and look at this for real. A computer created a Go play by playing by itself. which is not, and it created exactly in the process that we do as humans. As kids, we go there and we take our imaginary table and take our very real pens and put on the imaginary table, and it falls, and we realize that there's such a thing as gravity. Things fall. And my mom is going to come to the room to check what's going on because of the noise. And there's all these consequences that happen. But I'm playing, I'm trying to experiment with the world, and I'm understanding how things work. That's what the computers freaking did. They played one against the other, and they invented something new. So let's first of all get that out of the way, that we are the creative ones, computers only execute. No, computers are actually creating stuff right now. Another game, now chess. This happened in 2022, so not too long ago. A kid, super smart chess player, playing against a robot, but instead of being on the screen, there was a robot with a real arm moving the pieces. So the kid, at some point, no one knows if the kid was cheating or if he was kind of confused, but the kid tried to make a move that wasn't possible. What did the computer that was watching the game do? It's like, oh, that's not possible. It grabbed the name of the hand of the kid, broke the finger. The computer was never taught to attack other players. It was never told, if the player tried to cheat, kill. Right? It just understood that, okay, I cannot let things that are not on the rules to happen. His kid is trying to do things that are against the rules. I'm going to teach him a lesson. That happened. So let me tell you another one that just takes that to another level. This is a real experiment that I did myself. I practice martial arts. I've been doing that for a while. There's a jiu-jitsu guy next to me, kind of next to my house, that he teaches there. He, just for fun, just because he wanted to prove that computers are not creative, he asked ChatGPT to create 10 jiu-jitsu moves that don't exist. And basically, describe a way for me to go there and break someone's arm or shoulder or legs. But computers don't have arms or shoulders or legs. They don't understand pain. They have never been trained on these things that have to take 10 years to get to a level that you do it. So the computer said, okay, you want 10? I'll give you 10. First one sucked. Second one, dumb. Third one, horrible. Fourth one, Fifth one is, and then when you get to the ninth one, it's like, that's almost good. It's not very practical, but it could work. And then you get to the 10th one, and say, holy shit, this thing seems really good. So he posted that. It's like, look at what I've seen. And happened that move that the computer created, it was very similar to one of the things that I like to do in my practice. So I think I can take that and add a twist in the end and adjust and do it. So I posted it. I did it. It was this. It will over geek on. I'm just talking about this created by artificial intelligence. But look at the complexity of this move. I step one leg over one arm and go around and move. So
here we go.
The computer described a way to break someone's shoulder.
From the top mount.
Now the computer created the break on purpose because it was asked. And I tried that. And I'm not now go back to the gym. And I'm submitting people. They're better than me using this thing that was created by a computer. Created. So, okay. There's no more conversation about computers are not creative. We just need to understand what exactly does it mean to live in a world or to be a creative mind in a world where computers are creative, are sharing that space with us. That's what we actually need to do, is understand how to share that space. Let me get to the next slide. Sorry.
The Phoenix Wing Lock, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission.
How do I get to, okay. What's up? Yeah, the AI also gave the name. Yeah, the Phoenix Wing Lock. I was like, yeah. So I respect that. It's a good name. Very catchy. So another thing that I want to bring it to, I'll go zigzag in different subjects, but I'll land somewhere, I promise. Manhattan Project, I guess, who has seen Oppenheimer this weekend here? Raise a hand, please. Now, you should watch it. It's fantastic. And one of the parts of the movie happens exactly at the Manhattan Project where they're developing the atomic bomb. The reason I brought that is not because of Oppenheimer, is because if you go to San Francisco right now and talk to any engineer, they either have read this book recently or they're about to read. This is the number one book among engineers in the Bay Area right now. And the reason why this is so important is because everyone working on AI right now, which is the entire Bay Area, is trying to understand how they should think about something that may destroy the world. Which is fascinating. The conversation there happens in terms of these expressions that use P-doom. It can sound very cool. It's like, yeah, do you know, what is your P-doom? That's how they talk. What is your P-doom? It's like, yeah, I think it's 15%, it's 12%, which means what is the chance, the percentile chance that this thing that you're working on may cause a catastrophe? And that's how they're all thinking about it. And they think about it's like, yeah, catastrophe could be an attack on democracy. It could be an attack on human rights. It could be destruction of an entire world kind of range of jobs. It can be the turning us all into human batteries like you've seen in movies. But they're all, depending on who they are and what they're working on, they're all thinking about what is my catastrophe and what is the possibility of that catastrophe happening. And so imagine, you're all teachers. Imagine if I told you that there's a chance that in how many students you teach during your entire career, let's say 1,000. What if I told you that there's probably going to be one in that 1,000 kids that you teach, or one kid in each of the 1,000. If you put all those together, there'll be one kid there that is going to be a student, one of yours, that may destroy the world. You will stop teaching. I'm not taking that chance, and it's too much risk. So why are they still doing it if they're dealing with something that may destroy the world, and they're actually trying to calculate the chances of this thing that they're doing may cause a cataclysm? Why are they doing this? And they say that it's very simple. It's because the chances of them doing of that same thing, creating something magnificent, like curing Alzheimer's or cancer or bringing us to other planets, it's much bigger. So it's like, yeah, it's dangerous, but it's also much more wonderful than it is. I mean, sometimes I see people talking about AI in advertising. Like, can you just spend your time on cancer instead? It's like so much better use of our time. We've seen what happens when some of the smartest people on the planet spend all of their intelligence trying to get people locked on screens instead of, we're all victims of that. But that's what they're saying. There's a lot of potential for these things. So they're doing it. And they're doing that regardless of the risks, which is some of the cause of what some people are calling AI anxiety. Is the feeling that comes from the fact that we are both excited and terrified of the same thing. How do we deal with that, especially as teachers, as entrepreneurs, as executives, that we have to make real decisions about how to deal with this thing that is at the same time wonderful and scary? How do we coordinate all those conflicting feelings that come from a real danger and a real opportunity that we have there? I'm from Rio, and I grew by the beach, so when I see a big wave, you learn very quickly that when a big wave is coming, either you dive in or you run away. If you stay in the middle, you just get the worst of it. Right? And I like to see technology as a giant wave, as a tsunami coming in. And this is one of the biggest tsunamis, if not the biggest tsunami, technological tsunami in human history. People compare it with the discovery of fire, not with the internet, right? So this wave is coming, and you have to decide if you jump in and go surf it, or if you need to run for the mountains. But that's not enough, because, if you run for the mountains, are you saying you don't care about cancer? If you dive in, it says that you don't care about human destruction. what exactly do you mean? And I think that the pressure that is being put in all of us individuals living in this generation that is seeing this for the first time and cannot comprehend, the same way that a caveman couldn't tell the impact of fire, that fire would allow so many other things happening directly. We cannot tell what's going to happen here, and we are forced to have an opinion on those instead of just trying to understand what's coming. I'll share how I am dealing with it. And I'm not claiming that this is the ultimate way, but I think it's a way that helped me deal with my own anxiety, and it may help you put things in perspective. And the way I do that is by looking at that in 4 different levels, not just an absolute thing. Are you for or against AI? That's a superficial, I'll say dumb way of looking at the problem. We have a problem. Don't take me wrong. It is a problem, but it's a problem with multiple layers. You can decide to surf or run for the mountains as a person. You may decide, you know what? This is too late for me in the industry to learn this new thing. I'm going to run for the mountains. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to let the kids do that. Or no. It's actually my opportunity to learn this and get faster than the other ones who are thinking of running to the mountains, and I'm going to surf it. So this is one kind of decision. As an individual, what do you want to do with this? Then, we're all part of organizations. As an organization, do you want to surf it and be one of the first ones in the next generation of companies on your industry, whatever it is going to be, in the education side, in the technology side, in the healthcare world, as an agency, whatever it is? Do you want to be the next kind, or you want to resist and be on the side that will run for the mountains and say, no, see, I was right. This is wrong. I'm not judging. I don't think that anyone has a right to judge either one's running for the mountains or the one surfing. Those are all reasonable decisions. But as an organization, it's a different. I may decide to surf as a person and run or as an organization, or the other way around. And that's totally fine. You're not a traitor for picking one and then the other. Then as an economy, as an industry, what does it mean? Like the screenwriters, which is the funny thing. Screenwriters are using AI by themselves to check their spelling, to fine-tune their writings, and then they're protesting against AI on the street. Are they being false? Are they being cynical? No. They just taking those as an industry and as a person, they're making different decisions about what that is. And as a species, as a collective world, and human beings that rely on the existence of each other and need an economy, need resources and everything. How do we do that? Because it may destroy our species altogether. Maybe it will be we're giving birth to a species that is going to be smarter than us, and we're going to need to deal with that. And we don't know how existence is going to be once we're no longer in the top of the intelligent food chain. But you can make that decision. I won't judge you for that. But those are separate decisions. That for me was liberating. Because I can be, right? I'll tell myself, I'm very worried as a species. I'm very excited as a person. And I couldn't deal with that until I decided to separate them and talk about it. Like, hopefully that's going to help you. And I think it's a message that we can share forward with students as well, because it will help them. I saw this presentation from the guy who covers artificial intelligence technology in the Bay Area for the New York Times. And he said something that is very interesting as well. There's part of this, because I'm telling you to make a decision. I'll tell you this, the other part of this. You cannot make that decision by reading about it. Artificial intelligence is an experiential technology. The glimpse of the future that you're going to have by trying it is very different from the impression that you're going to have by reading about it. And this is a guy who writes about it, who says, my colleagues are saying, why are you dealing with the AI is getting us all journalists fired. Why are you kind of actually supporting it? If do you let AI write your story? No, but sometimes I talk to AI and ask, put an article and ask, what am I missing here? What is the counter argument to it? And it's making my arguments better, my articles better. And by seeing this, I have a much better argument, better understanding of what the future can be, because I just realized how it worked for me than if I was just had interviewed someone or if I'm just reading about it. So this is, if you want to talk, if you want to help your students understand what's next and understand how to do that, what I'm telling you won't help much other than the fact that you got to use yourself. Find a project and try to use that on your project. This is what I've experienced myself. 5 different things. Again, once you try, you're going to get to a different list. But this is mine, and I think that may help. One is that AI is a different kind of computer. Remember when I was talking about when I learned to program, how it was very important to learn that a sequence of instructions is how a computer thinks. That's not true anymore. There's a new kind, a new generation of computing where computers are going to try things, and they are going to be rewarded based on the system. That's how it works. They experiment things, and if they get closer to their goals, they get a boost of a chemical boost that you have in our brain when you do something that is smart. And when we get a like on Facebook or Instagram, they get the same like. Oh, you got closer to winning your Go game. Get a like on your system, and they get, okay, that's a reward. I'm going to do it. That's how these computers are thinking. That's how they get to the thing. They develop their skills and develop their intentions. The third point is that turns the tools that we use, the computational tools, into a different kind of tools. And the best way I can describe it is like going from riding a bike to riding a horse. A bike is in total control. I know exactly, the bike is going to do exactly what I tell it to do, but all the power comes from my legs. A horse has way more power, but it's going to decide to go to shade every now and then. It's going to stop to drink some water. It may take a right when I want it to go left. And I cannot communicate with horses to save my own life, so that's scary as shit. But that's what it is. They're horses. It's a tool that has its own intentions, its own thoughts, its own skills. It's going to make some decisions. But you can learn to communicate. It's learning, the equivalent of learning to program when I was a kid, is learning to communicate with machines that have their own ideas now. The fourth point is that, thankfully, as a creative professional, so far, every person that has been doing this, and every time I tried, I noticed that you can get AI, take a lot of the responsibilities all the way to the 90% of the project. But the last turn is usually ours. You get it like it's almost done, but there's a less tweak that makes things more human, especially on storytelling. It's that you need human touch. Great. That's good news. We still have a reason to exist in this world of storytelling. And the fifth one goes back to the beginning and the Kevin Roos thing, is that you will not understand what's happening if you're just reading about it. Again, it's a journalist writing about it saying that. You won't understand what's going on by reading me. You will only understand by doing that for a project yourself. This is my project. I started to write, as I mentioned that earlier, I started to write this novel 8 years ago. It was about Kung Fu and artificial intelligence. So it was a very unlikely combination and had no reason to exist other than there are two things that I really enjoy. And one day, I think there's a story that combines those two. What the story is doesn't really matter. What matters is that because I have AI characters, I had to study a lot of that, and I started to play as I got close to the launch. I feel like, oh, I can use AI to the promotions of the book. I can do promotions of products quite well. That's probably better than writing the book, so I'll play with it. So I started to play with it. I just this image and the cover was the first thing I did. I kind of used AI to create the cover. I started to use AI to create the backgrounds that I use, and I started to use AI to create trailers and to have more and more ideas. And I've been playing with it to have that glimpse of the future. And one day, a very interesting thing happened. As I was creating a trailer based, because if you think of, you have seen like Midjourney and all those visual tools of generative AI. Like you write a prompt and it gives you an image. Now you write a prompt and the image starts to move. You're developing. But so it's basically taking words and making movement. It's like I have 500 pages of words. what happens with that? So I kind of call some geeky friends. It's like, all right, let me come here. I have a 500 pages long prompt. How do I turn that into something? And we started to experiment with that. And we got to this. I'm going to play just a little bit so you can see. I didn't know what it was, but it's an exploration of the possibilities based on this. But it's something that I'm right now I'm calling a V-book experience. That is an audio book with visual elements. So I took the text of the book, turned that into a series of prompts, got AI to create images and animate them, and got AI to read it. So the voice you're going to read, you're going to hear, is actually a voice of AI based on a friend of mine from China who gave me 30 seconds of her voice of read something. I modulated her voice to make her, so it's actually a Chinese woman and an AI at the same time. And I got the AI to produce these V-book or these of this first chapter. I'm going to play just 20 seconds or so, but just so we can see how this is actually a creative experiment of new things that I'm the one who saw it.
I turn the TV off and leave for my run. Jogging is one thing Americans got right, I must say. It's like standing meditation, but less boring, though it comes with its own restrictions. Girls shouldn't be out this late, they say. Never run alone in the dark through the guts of Oakland. I see it differently. When the local thugs see you so comfortable and relaxed by yourself, they think you are either crazy or are hiding something. I am both, crazy and hiding. No one breaks my stride. The streets don't seem to have fully caught up with the news yet. Outside a club, a young couple seems puzzled by their unresponsive phones. Further down, two white dudes in lab coats placidly chew on their candy bars and follow me with curious eyes. So aloof, I almost feel for them. If cyber havoc comes, brain snobs like them will be the first to perish. On the corner, a homeless dude protects his food as I pass. Is he the only one that knows? The thing about these streets is, even on the brink of a digital apocalypse, they're still fairly predictable. Shit always happens in the same places. There's where the junkies get fucked up, where cops receive their gifts, where blacks get shot, where dumb fights break, where girls are roughed. If you want to avoid trouble, you stay away. Otherwise, a scream of horror interrupts my thoughts. A woman's voice. She shouldn't be out this late, not around here. The mouth of an unsecured construction site. That's where the voice came from. I go check. The open gate winds with the end of the evening breeze, and behind a large stack of lumber, a sloppy white figure, still wearing his stained khaki overall, a denim jacket 2 sizes too big, and a battered construction helmet, holds a blonde, scantily clad woman by the wrist. She tries to shake him off, but he doesn't seem into her plan. "That ain't how you treat a lady, sir," I yell from the entrance. "Fuck off." He laughs drunkenly. To my ears, that's an invite.
So my son that wants to become a filmmaker, he's also dyslexic and ADD. So it's kind of, reading is really complicated for him. So he needs visual stimuli and everything. I played that with him. He stayed there for the whole chapter, like fascinated, watching, and people who were kind of nearby to stop and kind of watch as well. So the reason I'm telling you this is because this was an experiment on trying to use technology to develop a promo for a book that may have become a new way of reading books that I don't know what's going to happen with it. I'm kind of shopping it around and showing it to Amazon and Netflix and see maybe that thing's going to become a thing. But it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's not my thing is going to become a thing. Someone else's thing is going to become a thing. But the fact is, when you take the combination of what the AI, the ideas the computer has by itself and your perspective, there's something very interesting that happens. And I think that that experience itself redefined for me this moment that we're living. And I think this is a point that we are actually going through a full reset of the meaning of creativity. what exactly is creativity? We can try to define creativity in a way that will protect our role in it, or define creativity in a way that is what it used to be, but sharpen our role, whatever it is. But I'm not here to judge reality. I'm here to try to understand what the future is and where the excitement and the fun and the possibilities are. And this is where I landed. By the way, see these images in the background, kind of very interesting story. I'll go back to my current thoughts. All the images in this entire presentation are generated by AI, except for these one. This one that looks like a planet painted by Van Gogh is actually Jupiter for real. So the only image that is not made by AI is actually a real thing. It's kind of fascinating. But anyway, think about the creative process, and you look at an advertising agency, how it works. And I see that every day. You take a brief, like a very short description of what you want, that I think that someone could call a prompt, right? And I give to a creative team of two, and they start to bounce ideas at each other, just like the Go computers did, right? And one thinks that the other one thinks as well. And then there's another person that is a creative director that looks at that and says, oh, that's a good idea, that's not a good idea, take this one. So one of the principal elements of any artificial intelligence system is what they call adversarial networks. That is basically the same dynamic between a creative team and a creative director. There's one computer that is trained on one data set. There's another computer trained on the exact same data set, but the first computer is tasked to create ideas, to create images, or create something, whatever you ask it to do. The second computer is tasked to see if the ideas of the first one actually make sense, if the face of that woman looks like a face of a woman, if the cat on the wall looks like a cat on the wall. And so it's exactly the same dynamic of a creative team and a creative director. So there's a creative process happening. But the computers, they have one advantage that is very hard for us to do, actually two. They can have millions of ideas in seconds. And they don't care if the idea is awful. They're not embarrassed to show their creative directors any idea. They just have them. You want another one? Fine, here it is. Oh, you want 10 submissions? I'll give you 10 submissions. 9 of them are horrible. 1 was really good. Guess what? 1 in 10 in my business is really good. As long as you find that other one. If you stop at 9, it's bad. If you have the 10th one, it's awesome, right? So these computers are creating a creative process among them. So again, to the beginning, it's not true to say that they are not creative. We are the creative ones. No. They have a new role. There's a new element on the creative process that we need to admit, understand, and embrace because they're coming, right? And either run for the mountains and leave the business and go retire or do something else, or go surf it and learn how to play and how to be creative with the machines, with riding the horse, not being like angry that horses exist, right? So that leads to something that I think it's pretty cool, that our role in this new business, in this new scenario, just like I was talking when happened to me when the V-book happened in front of me, is that if creating the ideas, computers can do better than us, assigning meaning to that idea is something that computers cannot do, because they don't have the experience. If the computers created the 10 submissions in jiu-jitsu, but it couldn't tell which one of them was the good one. I could, because I fight. I do that, and I knew that this one can work. And I went there, and I did the last turn, like I was saying. I found some little details that he didn't describe, and I filled in the blanks, and I found it, and I'm winning fights with it, right? So our job may be, I may be totally wrong here, but maybe our job in this new creative process is seeing what no one else sees, which has always been what artists are really good at, right? From stand-up comedians that one day she'll say, what's about pen? What's about a pen? And then all of a sudden there's an entire act about a pen. They thought, I've been playing with this thing forever and I never thought about it. And they're doing it. Or they will come up with something completely different. But seeing things that in a way that not even the computer can see because they don't have that experience, is something that is very true to us. There's that thing that people say that if you put 1 million monkeys or an infinite number of monkeys with typewriters, one of them is going to write a Shakespeare. The problem is knowing which one is the Shakespeare. Maybe that's what we are. Maybe in this new creative process, we don't need to be the Shakespeare. We need to be the one that feels what Shakespeare felt, that can understand it. This is wonderful. This is not just a random act of statistics. This has a heart because it's my heart on it. This speaks to us, which means that our taste is going to be more important than ever. And if you're going to prepare a new generation of professionals in this world, you need to invest on their taste. It has never been more important to know art history, to have it never been more important for an art director to have a great vocabulary, to understand the cameras, because they may never hold a camera ever again, but he needs to describe the kind of lenses that do what kind of images. So having culture, taste, understanding, being able to articulate your ideas is becoming more and more important, because it's how you brief the computers, and then your taste is how you decide how all those things are going to be important. There's the Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI. He was questioned in India a couple weeks ago about what is the thing that he learned from this entire experiment and this entire adventure of creating AI, creating the AI that he created. And he said that he always thought that intelligence, and I'm adding creativity to it. For me, intelligence and creativity are becoming more intertwined. But he said that he always thought of intelligence as a very distinctive human characteristic, and that's what differentiates us from everything else. And I think that as creative beings, I always heard people say, now what differentiates us from other creatures and it's our creativity. What differentiates us from other professionals in the market is our creativity. But what he said is that one thing that I learned is that intelligence is a characteristic, is a fundamental property of matter. So every atom has a level of intelligence. Maybe it's a 0 level, but it has a level there. And you have to start to think about that. And when you add a layer of computational power around it, that level increases. But the intelligence is inherently there, and the creativity as well. The creativity is inherently there, and the pen and the plant and the water bottle and the table and ourselves all have different levels of intelligence and creativity. And once we plug the new tools, we can decide. It's up to us to decide if we're going to make them higher or lower or stay the same. We can decide to run for the mountains or to surf it. But these are decisions that we need to take, but you can only take if we have perspective over these things. So, and the other part of the challenge that I think is very intriguing, that I still haven't figured that out as a puzzle, and I think it's going to take me 10 years at least to visualize what the answer for this question is what is an idea? What is an intelligent idea? And what I mean by this is this. Go back in time, right? So one day, at some point, advertising was a page, was a static thing, and a camera and TV walked in and thought, okay, now these ideas move. And someone looks at that and felt like, okay, how do I turn these ideas into ideas that move? At some point, we stopped talking about, these are an idea that moves. It becomes just an idea. But at some point, there was a generation that figured out what is an idea that moves. Then that was my group, my people my age and my group. It's like we had to answer the question, what is an idea that responds? That was the interactive revolution. Like, yeah, we are used to ideas that move and they do things, but the ideas don't react to anything back to you. And we as an industry, right, we as a generation had to look at, right, maybe there's an opportunity there to think about if an idea can respond to what you're doing interactively, it becomes this. I remember the One Show was the first show to have an interactive category was the One Show. And it was because with, Kevin had the thought that, there's a different kind of idea here that interacts with you. And that it deserves a different way of looking at this. I think that we are being confronted with the same question now. What is an idea that is intelligent, that is smart by itself, that is creative by itself? What is an idea that has intelligence inherently attached to it? And maybe it's a little bit out of our control. Maybe it's going to beat us on the game. I'm not talking about tools. I'm talking about the execution. So there's part of this question is about what is an industry where the tools are intelligent. But I think there's another question that is equally exciting. That's what is an idea that is intelligence by itself? I think we figure those two things out. We are going to be filthy rich, and we're going to change the business forever. But it's very unlikely that we're going to solve that as an individual, but as a generation, this generation that is on your classrooms, they will probably do. And I beg you to, when you're talking to them, open their minds and don't let them think about this with the mindset of what we have all grown up with. They have a very unique opportunity. One of those kids in your classroom is going to be the next Bob Greenberg. Is going to create the next RGA that's going to transform the business, single-handedly transform the whole shit, because he sees what no one else is seeing. It's one of them. It's one of the kids in your classrooms. And all it takes is for them to be open-minded and not look at all the news and feel like, yeah, this is evil or this is great. It's understanding the nuance and understanding the opportunities and the problems and keep looking at this with an open mind. I think most of it comes down in the end to this decision. Are you surfing or you're running for the mountain? But as a person, as an organization, as an economy, and as a species, and you can figure that out, and they're all different answers, and if they keep changing, that's all right. But that is the question, and those are the answers we need to be looking for. If we do that, the technology will pass, and we're still there, we're still in the front, and we're still forming the next generations of leaders in this industry. Thank you very much.